In the week ahead, we have a building ridge of high pressure over the desert southwest. That'll bring record breaking temperatures and leave the door open across the middle part of the country with more severe storms. But eventually, that ridge will slowly be building. In fact, places like into Denver will actually get 100 degrees on Friday, and that will continue to shift eastbound and likely developing and impacting the eastern portions of the U.S. by the time we head into the weekend. So if we take a look at the overall setup this morning, there is the dominating ridge of high pressure. In fact, Phoenix hit 114 yesterday. They'll be every bit as hot today and expanding into the 110 range there into New Mexico. Even El Paso will get into the 108 range. We also have another ridge that's going to be building out into Florida. That will be expanding as well, but you can see the middle part of the country is where we have some weakness in that ridge, and that's where storm development, and that's really where it's been even into this morning. We have another complex of storms that came out of Montana, and now it's impacting areas of the Dakotas with more heavy rain, and that's going to be the culprit later on this afternoon with more severe storms for areas into Minnesota as well as in the Dakotas, as we'll be looking for the weakness in the ridge across the middle part of the country along a little cool front that will be pushing southbound throughout the next couple of days. And we'll also be watching down there in the far extreme southern portions of the Bay of Campeche. There we could be looking at some tropical moisture trying to bubble up, especially at the end of the week, and bringing more heavy rain across the coastal communities of Texas and the southeastern states. So if we take a look at the storm reports from yesterday, yeah, folks, we actually had a tornado all the way up into Montana. Pretty rare event, but yes, we had another tornado all the way up into Montana. And then we also had numerous wind reports across a good part of Montana through the Dakotas, down through Nebraska. We also had some dry line type setup into the afternoon into New Mexico. We had that storm complex that came through Oklahoma that dove through Texas yesterday. And then we also had some more storms across the Carolinas into Virginia, and unfortunately the devastating flooding that took shape in areas of West Virginia. But today, here's where the storm will likely be, kind of the similar places where they were yesterday, along the complements of this cool front that will be dropping southbound. That will kick up more severe storms, and some elevated storms could be producing some big time hail producers up there into Billings, Montana, diving southeast into Rapid City, swinging over into Sioux Falls. And where we do have an area of low pressure, this could really elevate well up into Minneapolis, as well as into Duluth, Minnesota this afternoon with some big time hail producers. And unfortunately, we could get a couple of tornadoes out of this setup this afternoon into the early evening time frame. And then lighter amounts will shift further south into Kansas and back into portions of the Panhandle. So if we take a look at about 5-6 o'clock, there we are again with more supercell thunderstorms likely bubbling up, and this is why we have that hatched risk as we looking at some of these isolated renegades. Each one of these could be some golf ball size hail, or even potentially bigger today. That's where the low pressure center will likely be the strongest activity, and where we do have the tornado front well up into Minnesota. So Duluth is definitely not out of the question. Even further north than that could see some strong storms turning severe with very heavy winds, including some 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and a couple of tornadoes is in the forecast this afternoon. And we also have the heat. So not just today, that heat will be expanding across a good part of the desert southwest, but that will slowly shift eastbound. So for places like into West Texas, we've got 108, we've got 105, and the Panhandle easily 100 to 105 degrees. New Mexico, record high, 110 degrees. Those 90s will be expanding into Florida as well as into Georgia, a good part of the Carolinas, and swinging further north into North Carolina. But we'll also be expanding further north as well as we get deeper into the week. ahead of the cool front. So by the time we head into Tuesday, there's the cool front that will be diving southbound, and that will likely kick up more severe storms across Nebraska, over a good part, if not all of Kansas, especially there in Wichita, into Kansas City area, and that'll swing up into Des Moines, and then further south back into Oklahoma City and Tulsa. Yes, more storms for you. I mean, it's just been crazy. April, May, June, just relentless there. Every single system. Oklahoma seems to get hit. They even had 4 to 6 inches over the weekend. So we got more storms even heading into Tuesday. So as the setup unfolds, there's where the showers and thunderstorms will be. That's why we do have the severe risk in play ahead underneath that cool front. And where we have that low pressure, that's where the enhanced risk will be under the gun, with all three modes of severe storms. And then, of course, we have the sea breeze action along the Gulf will spread its tropical moisture further inland. What that will include much of the Tennessee and Ohio Valley, and of course, more heavy rain for West Virginia, which is definitely what they don't need. We already have another slight risk for excessive rainfall in a good part of West Virginia on Tuesday. That does include areas of Pittsburgh and to the western Pennsylvania. We also have where that low pressure center is highlighted over the middle part of the country into Kansas, and that will spread northbound where the low pressure center will be tracking northeast into Iowa and back into areas of northern Illinois and northwestern portions of Missouri. And by the time we head into Wednesday, there's the cool front. We'll be slowly sagging a little bit further south. So now areas into Indiana, Illinois, more Missouri. But yes, under the gun yet again for Oklahoma City, Tulsa, but this time we'll spread at least some precipitation and a 30% chance further south into the Dallas-Fort Worth region as we get into the overnight hours on Wednesday. Here's kind of a setup where the model depiction kind of pinpoints some activity that's going to be highlighted once we turn dark on Wednesday, where we could be looking at numerous showers and thunderstorms that are highlighted over Indiana as well as in Illinois, swinging back through Missouri, Arkansas, and then more isolated type bubble up into Oklahoma. And I think this will eventually swing further south into portions of North Texas and especially Northeast Texas. But there is the ridge of high pressure will only be expanding as we get deeper into the week. Will slowly shift eastbound. So now much of New Mexico will be under the gun of that record-breaking temperatures, the Panhandle, and that's when it'll sneak further north into Colorado. That's where we should start to get close to triple digits, if not right at triple digits on Friday. That would be a record-breaking temperature there in Denver on June 20th. That's actually the first official day of summer, and it's going to feel every bit like summer across a good part of the U.S. with widespread 90s for a good part of the central and southern two-thirds, southeastern two-thirds, and even some hundreds will start sneaking into the picture into Kansas, Nebraska, and Colorado. And then even the 90s swing further north, where you're going to be having the storms. That's going to be replaced with the 90s by the time we head into Friday in Minnesota. But further south, we got to be looking at the tropics because we've had relentless systems one after another in the Pacific. We'll likely have yet another one. If this comes to fruition, it would be Eric, but also be spreading some of its precipitation and the tropical moisture and down there in the Bay of Campeche. That is going to be lifting northwest, and that's the culprit that could spread more showers and thunderstorms for deep South Texas and along the coastal areas, likely beginning this weekend with that tropical type moisture. So there it is. The National Hurricane Center already has yet another 90% probability if this forms into Eric, and it likely will be not only a storm, could be even a minimal hurricane as it kind of hugs the coast there in Mexico. So that would be the 5th named storm already in the Pacific. We're still waiting for our first named storm in the Atlantic, but of course it starts 2 weeks later. So not that unusual that the Pacific is off to an early and active start, but there's the setup on Saturday into Sunday where we got that tropical moisture getting a little bit closer, and the Eric or the remnants of Eric will be spreading into Mexico. That will be bringing some more elevated rain showers for them and spreading some more tropical moisture, at least along the coastal areas and Florida, along the I-10, I-20 corridor, southern Texas there, spreading into Del Rio. This area is in a desperate drought, so they look forward to these tropical systems like what's to come to kind of eat away some of those drought areas that have been expanding for a good part of the spring. But the difference, once we get into Sunday, that ridge of high pressure will be not over the western U.S., will be slowly shifting east, and that's going to be replaced with a fairly significant trough for this time of year, diving into the Pacific Northwest. That'll bring much cooler conditions and even rainier conditions back in the picture for them, and that will be replaced with the ridge of high pressure and the cooler conditions down there in the southwestern regions, as some monsoon action will likely start to kick in. But in the middle part of the country, and once we get to the eastern 2/3 of the U.S., now there is the dominating ridge and the sinking air, and you'll start to feel the effects of that ridge of high pressure. In fact, even right now, the Climate Prediction Center is already highlighting that slight risk for excessive heat that will be moving across beginning on the 21st through the 24th time frame across a good part of Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, back into Illinois, as well as into the Tennessee Valley to the Ohio Valley. That'll eventually sneak into places along the East Coast where it could be dangerously hot down up there into Virginia, as well as into North Carolina, as well as into New Jersey. But that won't likely be until, say, the 24th, 25th time frame. But the heat will be coming your way. It's just a matter of time. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch the next update. Why I protect you before and after the storm.